All right, today we are breaking down a battle that, on paper, should have been completely impossible. It's an incredible story of deception, psychology, and frankly, one of the greatest military upsets in history. So let's just get right into it.
So picture this. It's the summer of 1183. We're at this treacherous mountain pass in Japan called Kurikara, where two armies have met for a fight that really should have been a complete slaughter. On one side, you have the mighty Taira clan, and they've brought an army of 40,000 warriors. On the other, the underdog Minamoto clan, with just 5,000. I mean, that's a staggering 8-to-1 advantage.
But what happened next? Well, it just defied all military logic. The smaller force didn't just scrape by with a win, they orchestrated an absolute annihilation of their enemy. And this one battle wouldn't just decide the fate of these two clans. It was going to fundamentally change the course of Japanese history.
And that, right there, brings us to our main question. How in the world did a small, scrappy army of 5,000 pull off the impossible against a force 8 times its size? The answer is just a masterclass in strategy, psychology, and knowing how to exploit the fatal arrogance of a far too confident enemy.
You see, this incredible upset didn't just happen out of nowhere. It was really the boiling point of a bitter national rivalry, a huge conflict that was personified by the two very different men leading these armies into battle.
The backdrop for all of this is the Genpei War. We're talking about a brutal, 5-year struggle for the very soul of Japan. The nation's two big military families, the Taira and the Minamoto, were locked in this desperate war for total control over the imperial court and, well, everything else. And that little pass at Kurikara? It was about to become the war's definitive turning point.
And this clash of armies was perfectly mirrored by the clash of their commanders. Leading the Minamoto was Minamoto no Yoshinaka, a guy who was raised in the harsh Kiso Mountains. That made him tough, unconventional, and a strategist that everyone deeply underestimated. His opponent, Taira no Koremori, couldn't be more different. He was a noble, raised at the imperial court, and was already infamous for a campaign where his army literally fled in a panic from a flock of water birds. So yeah, he was inexperienced and dangerously overconfident.
You know, Koremori's flawed leadership just infected his entire force. The massive Taira army was basically its own worst enemy. They were so arrogant because of their numbers that their discipline was terrible. They were actually pillaging their own territories for food on the march, which, you can imagine, turned the locals against them. Their supply lines were stretched super thin, and worst of all, they completely misjudged the man waiting for them in the mountains.
Now Minamoto no Yoshinaka knew that a straight-up fight would be suicide. There was no way he could win with brute force, so he decided to win with his mind. He came up with this multi-stage strategy that was just rooted in pure deception. This wasn't just about battlefield tactics, this was psychological warfare.
His entire plan was built on one profound insight. He didn't actually need to defeat 40,000 men. He just needed to use their own huge size, their commander's arrogance, and the terrifying mountain terrain against them. He was going to turn the Taira army into the weapon of its own destruction.
His plan was just this beautiful symphony of deception, with each part designed to manipulate the Taira. First, the illusion. He planted dozens of his clan's white banners on a nearby hill, which made the Taira think his main force was much bigger and positioned somewhere else. This made them stop and hesitate. Second, the distraction. He started a formal, day-long archery duel, which kept the Taira army busy and pinned down in one spot. And while they were all focused on this ritual combat, he executed step 3, sending a separate force on a long march to circle all the way around and seal off the Taira's only escape route. And all of this was just setting the stage for the masterstroke.
So with the Taira army stalled, surrounded, and completely in the dark about what was happening, the sun finally set on the Kurikara Pass. The stage was now set for the final, absolutely devastating act. The Taira commanders, totally distracted by the day's weird events, felt completely secure. I mean, they held the high ground, and they figured they'd just easily crush the Minamoto in the morning. So they settled into their camps for the night, completely blind to the trap that was about to snap shut. And this was Yoshinaka's masterstroke. As total darkness fell over the pass, his men unleashed their secret weapon, a whole herd of oxen, with flaming torches tied to their horns, driven like some kind of hellish stampede directly into the heart of the sleeping Taira camp. The effect was immediate, and it was catastrophic. Taira soldiers woke up to an absolute nightmare, the sight and sound of what looked like a demonic army of fire charging down on them. Panic just exploded through the camp. In the pitch black, terrified soldiers couldn't tell friend from foe and started attacking each other. Their only instinct was to run, and the only escape route was straight away from the chaos, down into the deep, dark Kurikara Valley below. The ancient epic, The Tale of the Heike, describes the absolute horror of the scene. Panicked Taira soldiers just poured into the valley, thinking it was a path to safety. But in the dark, thousands of them just tumbled off the steep cliffs, with men and horses piling up in this grotesque mass grave. Now, while the number 70,000 is probably an exaggeration for the epic, it really captures the sheer scale of the rout. And just as the panicked Taira soldiers were flooding into the valley, Yoshinaka's flanking force, the one that had been marching all day, attacked from the rear. The trap was now complete. Pushed from the front by a terrifying illusion and blocked from behind by a real attack, the Taira army was utterly crushed. That valley of escape, it had become a tomb.
The Battle of Kurikara wasn't just a brilliant military victory. Its consequences were immediate, and they fundamentally reshaped the entire war. The Taira clan lost the vast majority of its main fighting force in a single night. Historical accounts suggest that only a few thousand of the original 40,000 even managed to escape. It was a catastrophic blow that their clan would just never recover from. The Minamoto, on the other hand, suffered barely any casualties at all.
The fallout was astonishingly fast. In early June, the Taira army is annihilated. By August, with their military might completely shattered, they're forced to flee their own capital city, Kyoto. And by September, the mountain warrior Yoshinaka marches in triumph into the very seat of imperial power.
And this is why this all matters so much. This battle was the war's great turning point. Before Kurikara, the Taira were the dominant power, no question. After Kurikara, the momentum shifted decisively and irreversibly to the Minamoto, paving the road for their ultimate victory.
The ripple effects from this one night of chaos were just immense. The battle effectively ended the Taira's century of dominance. It all but guaranteed the Minamoto would win the war, and it led directly to the founding of Japan's first military government, the Kamakura Shogunate, a new kind of warrior-led rule that would control the country for nearly 150 years.
Ultimately, the Battle of Kurikara is this timeless lesson that a brilliant strategy is a far more powerful weapon than just brute force. Yoshinaka proved that victory doesn't always go to the biggest army, but to the smartest, the boldest, and the one that best understands the mind of its enemy. And it leaves us with this final kind of provocative thought. It's a question that echoes from that valley all the way down through the centuries, asked by generals, CEOs, and underdogs everywhere. At what point does cunning truly become more powerful than strength?